Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, playfastfootball.blogspot.com. Today we're going to talk about shield punt. All right, first thing we should talk about is field position, how that field position is going to affect special teams, starting drives all the time. And we need to talk about what we're going to call explosive plays and trying to win the explosive play category. And then we're going to talk about operation time. Field position within special teams and starting drives and where teams start drives is always going to be a huge deal and something we're going to stress in special teams all the time. What we want to take a look at is based off the last 3 years of games that we've played in, what is the field position and how does it relate to touchdowns? We're only talking touchdowns right now. We're not talking about points. I think touchdowns is a little bit more relatable in the high school game because most schools struggle with the kicking game or the field goal game, and there's not a lot of teams that will convert drives with field goals. You'll play some teams that have really good field goal kickers, but most teams you play in high school don't have a great field goal kicker, so we focus on touchdowns more than anything else. What you're going to see here is when a team starts from the goal line to their own 20, in the last 3 years they've only scored a touchdown 5% of the time. When a team starts from their 20 to their own 40, they've scored a touchdown 15% of the time. When a team starts from their own 40 to our 40, they've scored a touchdown 25% of the time. When a team starts from R40 to R20, they score a touchdown 35% of the time. And when a team starts from R20 to our goal line, they're going to score a touchdown 66% of the time. So when we're talking about special teams in the punt game, where we can put that team and where we can make them start their drives is going to have a lot to do with how many points or how many touchdowns they can score. When we're looking at explosive plays, what we want to look at is categories that we break down, and we're going to get pluses and minuses for categories. And then what we're going to try and do at the end of each game is tally all those up within the special teams play and see if we won the explosive plays. So in the punt game, what we would look at is, do we average a 39-yard net? All right, for me, just in my history of coaching football, I think that's a decent number. So we're going to get +1 if we can average, all right, any punt that averages a 39-yard net, we would get a +1. If we can put a punt inside the 10, we're going to get a +1. If we can successfully fake to get a first down, we're going to get a +1. If we can get a turnover, if they muff that punt, or if we possibly jar that ball loose from the returner, we're going to get +2. And if we somehow scored a touchdown off of a fake, we would get a +3. If we were to get or give up, all right, or punt for a 20-yard net or less, we're going to get a -1. If we get any penalties on the punt team, we're going to get a -1. If we try to fake it and we're unsuccessful, we're going to get a -1. If we give up a blocked punt, we're going to get a -2. If we give up a safety punting from our own end, we're going to get a -2. And if we give up a touchdown, we're going to get a -3. All right, so you can see there, that's how we chart the explosives for us in our punt game. So at the end of every game, I'm going to go through, and I'm doing special teams this year, so it's going to be something I pay a little bit more attention to, and I'm going to try and chart at the end of every game. I'm going to chart our punt team, how many times we punted. I'm going to go through what pluses we have, what minuses we have, and see if, in my eyes, if we won the explosive plays. Next thing we need to look at is the operation time. Standard operation time, and this goes off of more college NFL than probably high school, so I adjust my numbers a little bit. But standard operation time is snap to hand, 0.8, hand to foot, 1.2, total operation time, 2.0. So that is probably more of a college or an NFL operating time. I think ours should be 2.1, 2.2, and then I'm going to base our protection off of our operating time. So I'll start everything with that operation time. If we have a 2.0 operation time, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We'll probably, within our shield, we'll probably let 4 guys on the shield. And if our depths and our angles and our splits are right, with a 2-second operation time, as long as we don't mishandle a snap or as long as we don't have a bad snap, if we can be 2 seconds in the operation time, we can probably give up 4 in the A-gap versus the shield almost every time. So as we speak about that, let's just take a look at what we're going to do now with our shield punt. I try to keep our shield punt as basic as I can possibly keep it, and then I try to have a few answers for if we are giving up a lot of pressure inside the A-gaps, if they're getting 4 on our shield, if the 4th guy on the shield can go around the shield and get to the punt because of our operating time or possibly because of poor steps by the punter, then we'll have to have some things that we wrinkle a little bit. But just for us as a standard, we are going to start with 2-yard splits from the center to the guard. 2-yard splits from the guard to the tackle, and a 3-yard split from the tackle to the tight end. So that's 2 yards, that's 2 yards, that's going to be 3 yards. We're going to do the same thing on each side. All right, so we're going to be 2 yards here, we're going to be 2 yards here, we're going to be 3 yards here. One thing you have to understand about the shield punt is the splits that you take and where you make people line up is one of the things that is going to help your protection. You're taking wider splits because of the shield. You're allowing initial inside pressure because of the way the shield is built. And then the pocket of the punt with the shield and the punter stepping directly behind the shield is going to create a safe environment for the punter to get the ball off of, so that you do not give up any block punts or any hands-on punts or anything of that nature. So the splits that you take is very important if you want to try and protect it the way that we're going to try and protect it. Our right shield is going to be heels at 7, probably inside leg of the guard. Our left shield is going to be heels at 7, somewhere inside leg of the guard. All right, and then our personal protector is going to be behind the right shield. He's going to start behind the right shield, and then he'll close the shield after the snap and step into the middle. And then at the right and the left shield, they'll just step down to the personal protector and we'll create that 3-man shield. Our punter is going to have his heels at 14 yards. Our shield, they're going to have their heels at 7 yards. And they're going to be on a cliff, and we're going to tell them that their heels are at 7, standing on a cliff. You cannot go backwards from there. It's a big part of what you're doing in the shield punt. You have to understand where your punter is, what his steps are to get the ball off, where he steps in the pocket of the shield is very important. And then you have to make sure that your shield understands that they're going to stand on a cliff and they're not going to let anybody behind them. So after this ball is snapped, we will have our 3-man shield. And that drawing right there is a little bit unrealistic because these guys will step down slightly to each side, and our 3-man shield will be almost basically shoulder to shoulder, not giving up any inside creases at all. We're going to block everything inside out. We start with bigger guys in the shield if we can. We sacrifice our coverage ability with the bigger guys so that the bigger bodies give us a better chance of getting the punt off and be able to handle 4 in the A-gap if we get it to start that way, because we know that's how everybody's going to try and attack the shield. So within our base operating procedure, bigger bodies allow us a little bit wider shield so that 4 in the A-gap has to go around the shield so that we feel like we can get the punt off. If you use smaller bodies like linebackers or tight ends, they're going to cover better, but you may want to go to more of a man scheme with the shield inside, because then you're not going to have the same surface area to get those guys to run around the shield to try and block the punt. You'll have less surface area, so you'll have a little bit smaller pocket and better angles for 4 on the shield to get around the shield to possibly get a hand on that punt. So if you sacrifice smaller guys for coverage, you may want to change your scheme and go to more of a man scheme. If you're fortunate enough, like the college guys are, to where you can get D linemen that are 285 pounds but still run 4.7 or 4.8, and you can get 260-pound D ends that can run 4.7 or 4.8, now you've got a big shield. You can zone the shield in the middle, taking away the inside. You can allow guys to come through the A-gaps. You can get the best coverage possible with your front line and your back line. All right? First thing we're going to talk about, got to be able to defend 10 coming. So we're just going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the A-gaps. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the A-gaps. Our standard base way of protecting in our shield punt is a man scheme where we're going to block the 3 widest from outside in. And when we do that, if they are outside of our original alignment, which you will see a lot, we are going to drop step to our outside. If I have a player, if I'm the guard and I'm blocking number 3 and number 3 is outside of me, I am going to drop and I am going to run through his inside number, and I'm going to try and redirect him for 2 steps laterally. I'm going to shoot my hands and aim for his inside number and redirect him 2 steps laterally before I release on my lane downfield. If that player crosses my face and I have the right split, I am going to release him to the shield, and he is going to have to go around the shield to try and block that punt. If we have a 2.0 or a 2.1 operating time, I am okay with a 2-yard split from the guard starting off with the guard dropping and running, and if that player crosses his face, I'm okay turning him to the shield because I feel like our operating time will get the punt off. If we are having issues with that, then we will go to a true straight man scheme, and if that number 3 is head up on me, then I'm going to take more of an inside position step to make sure I block him man before I release down the field. But we always start on both sides with both sides of our coverage, drop, run, redirect for 2. Drop, run, redirect for 2. Drop, run, redirect for 2. And then we are going to release down the field. That is the way we will always start. It's a man scheme on both sides. So we're going to do the same thing to both sides. We're going to drop, run, redirect for 2, release. Drop, run, redirect for 2, release. Drop, run, redirect for 2, release. Our center will always free release to get head up on the returner. We never use the center in protection at all the places I've been in high school. We never ask the center to protect a side or another. His job is get that ball to the punter in 0.8 seconds, get down the field, and get face up on the return. Our coverage lanes will be approximately 4 yards apart from each other. We will talk to our widest guys about containing the ball. All right, our widest guys will look at containing the ball. We will talk to the inside guys about being kind of alley fitters. All right, so if you thought about this from a defensive standpoint, the outside guys are your contained force guys. The inside guys are your alley guys. The center always tries to get head up. We will release our shield guys, all right, down the field. Our right shield will go just inside, or just outside the right hash mark. Our center, our personal protector will go head up to the ball. Our left shield will go just outside the left hash mark, and they will try and stay 15 to 20 yards from the return. These are all base scenarios that we're talking right now. So we're talking about our man scheme, drop step, redirect for 2, get on your lane, get out down the field. If it's a man scheme and 1, 2, and 3 are outside of us. Again, if 3 was inside of us with the guard, then I may have to, if he's putting pressure on the punter, I may have to block him more of a man, straight man scheme. All right, with our original scheme, we're a man scheme on the 3 widest if the 3 widest are outside of us. We never worry about the 1 or the 2 being inside the end or inside the tackle and going from there. If our splits are right, we feel like they'll never get to the punt. And then we have some change-ups if we have to. So our original scheme is man on 1, 2, 3, drop, step, run, redirect, get down the field. We're looking to be possibly 4 yards between each player to create that kind of picket fence on the ball. One thing we do is we do a drill on air with the returner. We release everybody down the field, and then we'll have a returner, all right, that will start, and he will run in one direction, and everybody in that picket fence is going to shuffle, mirror that player. He runs in the other direction. Everybody in the picket fence kind of shuffles, mirrors, and we try to stay that 4-yard relationship. That returner runs up the field, and then we fold and close the fence from there. So the closest 2 to him tag off on the hip. The next 2 alley guys fold. The last back 2 outside guys fold when he returns up the ball. Worst place you want to be on special teams is flying by the returner. So we do this drill all the time to get our guys to understand how to settle, shimmy their feet. We don't tell them really to break down. We try to tell them to kind of shorten their stride. We want them to be almost full speed and then shorten their stride to gather to make a tackle. When you tell them to break down, they stop all the time, and that's a big problem that we have. So we try and tell them to shorten their stride, and then we're going to shuffle and mirror that returner. When he comes vertically up the field, we're then going to fold and kind of close that gate a little bit. Then we're going to try and create a triangle on the back end, all right, where we've got the outside 2 on the hash marks, and then the punter will be head up on a returner, and he will be the last guy creating that triangle with the outside 2, and then we'll also have a 4th middle point with our personal protector. So we're going to get a triangle on the ball as a safety net with our left shield, our right shield, and then our personal protector head up on the ball with our punter head up on the ball. All right, so we'll have the 3 outside parts of the triangle and then that extra part in the middle because we have 4 back-end players with our 3 shield players and the punt. All right, so that's how we start everything. We start with man to both sides. All right, we see if we can handle 4. These players on the inside now. What you have to understand is we are going to release 4 and 5 we are going to release 4 and 5 onto the shield. So they are physically going to get, when we start off in our base protection, they're going to get 4 on the shield. And we're going to see with our operating time and our punter and our shield, how long we can handle 4 on the shield getting punts off. The first time that we have an issue, with a 4th guy getting around the shield and into the punt, the first time we have an issue, then we've got to make some adjustments to there. All right, but we are going to start all the time with man, 1, 2, 3, drop step, run, redirect for 2, get down the field, because this scheme for us gets the 7 guys down the field the quickest way possible. We have blocked this scheme and this scheme only at times, and in the last 3 years with probably over 200 punts, we've only had 2 punts blocked. All right, so 2 punts, 1 out of every 100. I don't feel great about ever getting a punt blocked, but if you're going to punt 100 times and only have 1 blocked, I think you can live with that. All right, in order for us to get better and not have punts blocked, that's where we have to combine a man scheme with a zone scheme. And that's what I'm going to show you next. So just so we're straight, we will start off man on both sides, block 1, 2, 3, the widest out. We will drop step, run, aim for the inside number, redirect laterally for 2, and then get down the field. We will let 4 get on the shield within our initial teaching. We always do. That's the way we've always done. Now, when you start to get into a little bit of an issue, with 4 on the shield, maybe your long snapper's not great. Maybe your punter has a tendency to step to one side or the other. Maybe your punter doesn't get it from hand to foot in 1.2 seconds. It takes them 1.6 seconds. If those are your issues, then you're going to have to combine some man schemes with some zone schemes. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go man to one side, zone to the other. So now on the zone side, we're going to cut our splits down to a yard. So we're going to be 2, 2, and 3. But then on the zone side, okay, we're going to be 1, 1, and 2 with the widest guy. So we're going to cut our splits down to be 1, 1, and 2 on the backside, on the zone side. We are going to leave our shield where they belong. Heels at 7, personal protector. Heels at 14, heels at 7. Now what we're going to do is we're going to keep one side a man side. And we're going to make one side a zone side. So if the right side is the man side, they're going to drop, run, redirect for 2, drop, run, redirect for 2, drop, run, redirect for 2, get down the field. Our center gets down the field. Now the zone side, which I have drawn up as the left side right now, they're basically going to take a more aggressive approach than the true drop run. They're going to take more of an inside zone step and rip run through their inside A gap, rip run through their inside B gap, rip run through their inside C gap. So now we're going A, B, C gap, and we are leaving anything off the edge alone on the back side. We still feel like with a 1 yard, 1 yard, 2 yard split that anything off the edge should not be able to get to our punter. What this is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to pick one of the 4 rushers or one of the 2 A-gap players to the zone side. We should be able to pick one of the A-gap players off, and if we have a good enough player at guard, we'll block one of the A-gap players into the other A-gap player. They will not get 4 on the shield. They will get outside pressure. And now again, we're talking about sending 10, no fakes, nobody covering anything. So we're talking about the most aggressive scheme we can handle. And when we do this, we send 10, and a lot of times we'll put 7 rushers on one side and make our guys block it. We want to show them the worst possible scenario. So now when we go with this aggressive zone scheme, we're going A gap, B gap, C gap inside. That should allow us to take care of at least 2 through 5 or 2 through 4. If 5 gets through and 4 and 5 on the other side get through, they're only getting 3 on the shield. So now we are man to one side, zone to the other, and now the zone players have to understand how to get back in their relationship where they belong in coverage, trying to keep 4 yards between each other. So now when we get down the field, we still need to have the same 7-man picket fence we're trying to create, that flat wall, with guys 4 yards apart. If you have a punter that can directional punt, a lot of times what you may want to do is directionally punt to the side that you're blocking man, because that's the side that your guys are getting out a little bit cleaner and they're getting out with leverage. If your punter were to miss to the zone side and your zone side guys are working in and up and the other team has a good return set up, you can get pinned with the ball coming out to the zone side. You're still going to have your shield guys doing the same thing. Now there should only be 3 on the shield that should be able to get there. From the inside first, your backside shield player to the zone side will step inside. If nothing shows, he can peel a little bit late to take the pressure coming off the edge. Because there's a chance if your guard is good enough, when he slams the A-gap, if these two think they're going to get a free run, he may knock 4 into 5 and be able to blunt both A-gap defenders. And now your shield guy with nothing showing might be able to peel out and pick up somebody coming off the edge. We don't do that until later. We normally start with the shield inside, unchain the D-gap players on the outside, and make sure that within our operating time we can get that ball off. Again, with a directional punter, I suggest directionally punting to the man side so that you know at least all of your players are working that way, because your zone side is now working, all right, inside as well. So the next thing we would do if we're having problems with 4 in the A-gap, we will go man to one side, zone to the other. So we'll block the 3 widest on the man side, and then really, essentially, we're trying to block A-gap, B-gap, C-gap on the zone side. And if we could get the 3 most inside and let the 2 outside come, that would be the best. But logically, when they want to get 2 in the A-gap, a lot of times what will happen is the end will end up getting 2, the tackle will get 3, and the guard will get 4, and he might knock 4 into 5. So normally we can block 2, 3, and 4, and try and blunt 4 into 5's path. If 2 wants to get real wide, we'll let him come from real wide, and we'll unchain 2 off the edge from the backside because we think our operating time is good. So on the zone side, we're going to look to get 2, 3, and 4. If we're good enough on 4, we might block 4 into 5. We can go man right, zone left. We can go man left, zone right. As long as the players understand who's on the zone side, who's on the man side. Start and base, man to both sides, outside releases, run. Best coverage we can get. Having trouble with A-gap pressure, go to man on one side, zone on the other. Again, this is without fakes, this is without holding them. They got 10 guys and they're coming. So if that's an issue, you have to understand how to block it first. We start man both sides, then we go to man zone. The only other wrinkle, depending on our punter that we will put in, and if you can do this, I suggest you do so, because it's just like protecting your quarterback. We will go to a rugby punt. And the rugby punt, we will always roll to the side of the punter. Normally we have a right-footed punter, so we're going to roll right. So we're going to stay 2 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards. On the backside, we're going to be 1, 1, and 2. Our personal protector and our shield guys are all going to be the same. Heels at 7. Personal protector will start there. They're 7. They're 14. He'll close the middle from where he starts. He'll close the middle and get into the shield. When we do this, now what we're going to try and do is now to the side of the rugby punt, we're going to try and get 3, 4, 5 on the inside if we can. So we're going to take our rugby side players, and they're basically going to be inside players as well. So it turns out almost into the same zone theory. We're going to try and get 5 with the guard, 4 with the tackle, 3 with the end. And now when we rugby punt, we're going to roll to our right, and the punter needs to get it off in 4 steps. So the punter going to his right needs to be 1, 2, 3, 4, punt the ball. Your right shield is going to take care of number 1. Your personal protector is going to take care of number 2. Your left shield is going to take A-gap to anything coming from the backside. Nothing from the backside should get there with us rolling away from it. We're going to be zone on the backside, so now we're going to be A-gap, B-gap, C-gap with a more aggressive inside zone step than a drop, cross, and run. All right, and now from here, we've got to be able to get down the field with our integrity and try and keep that picket fence, build that wall. But what you got to remember in the rugby punt is this punt's probably going to come out real low and real high. So when we rugby punt, all right, there's a chance that they're not going to have a chance to settle under it and set up a great return. This thing should be coming out low. It should be a line drive that hits the ground and starts to run. The biggest thing we got to work on is because we're releasing the end inside, he now has to understand that he's probably got to widen back to his track, widen back to your track, widen back to your track, depending on where that ball goes. The center's always still going to try and work head up. So now when we go rugby, we're going to go inside, all right? We're going to start with normal splits until we can't handle it. If we can't handle it, then we'll have to cut the man side splits down a little bit. But we're going to start with our normal splits first because we don't want to tip our hand that it's rugby. We're changing the launch point. This is much like sprint out with your quarterback. We're changing the launch point of the punter. So if they're trying to get 4 in the A-gap with inside pressure and we're rugby punting, we're rolling away from the inside pressure. So by changing the launch point of the punt, we're trying to change how they have to come after it to block it. If we keep our initial splits the same, they can't tell whether it's rugby or base. If we have to cut our splits down and now everybody is condensed, now on film they're going to see that when both sides are tight, we're going to go rugby. So we want to keep our right side, the side we're rugby punting, we want to keep that side with the same splits if we can. All right, and then this will become inside. And again, in a perfect world, we'd like to get 3, 4, and 5 blocked with the inside guys, 1 and 2 with the right shield and the personal protector, backside A-gap, zone, zone, zone. We should be able to get 2, 3, 4. If 5 sneaks through, that's why the left shield player is there. The center will never be part of the protection. He will always go down to work head up on a ball. So we've got man to both sides. We've got man to one side, zone to the other, and then we've got the rugby punt so we can change the launch point and try and change how they have to block that punt. If you can rugby punt, I suggest you do it. If they want to bring 4 at the shield, now they got to bring 4 at the shield with your punter rolling out. If your punter rolls out and you have an athletic punter that's out there and they bring 4 inside from the shield, you may get to a point where with the rugby you might be able to keep it for a first down because there's nobody left out there. So again, with no fakes in and you're talking about punt protection, you want to protect 10 coming, 5 from each side, 6 and 4. We'll send 7 from the same side to show our kids that if our shield is right, our splits are right, and our operation time is right, that even 7 guys from one side can't get there. But you want to start off that way first to make it as difficult as possible, knowing that in the game, they're going to have to account for fakes. They've got to account for the end men being eligible. They have to account, depending on the numbers, you might have eligible receivers back here if you're using linebackers and tight ends. And they have to account for rugby style with the punter leaving. Once you have all those things on film, you'll get less and less double A-gap pressure because they know now that they have to account for some different things. If you punt the same way all the time, teams are going to come after the shield with 4 in the A-gap or possibly try and come from head up to just over the guard with stacked players and try and get just outside the wedge or the shield with A-gap pressure and a guy coming off the shield. If that's an issue to the man side, you're going to have to work with your guard a little bit. If he's got 1, 2, 3 and he's got the third and the third guy gets more thicker head up on him, you may not want to drop and release him. You may want to make it more of a straight inside foot man scheme to make sure that that guy has to go outside of him. If your splits are correct and 3 is outside and you drop and you run to his inside number and he crosses your face, let him go and release and get down the field. He will not get there if your operating time is good. So we've got man on both sides to start, combination man zone, rugby punt where you're going to turn everything inside and you're going to put your right shield and your personal protector on 1 and 2, changing the launch point of the punt. Special teams will always be a big part of what goes on. This is going to be the first time in my career that I am going to do special teams only, so I am going to be in charge of every special team that we do. My goal on punt is going to be not only efficient and effective, but within the shield scheme that we use, I'm going to try and be formationally a little bit different. I'm going to go end over sometimes. I'm going to put gunners out wide. All right, and if I teach my kids correctly, we should be able to use the shield concepts with a couple varied exotic looks along with the rugby punt to try and keep some pressure off the punter. Make sure you try and make special teams important for your guys. Talk to them about field position. talk to them about explosive plays, get your best players to be on the field, make them accountable for special teams, and treat special teams just like it's offense and defense. When we start with man to both sides, the reason we start that way is that's the way I think we can play the fastest. I think we can drop, crossover, run, or drop, run, redirect for 2 and get down the field. That's the easiest for our kids to do. It has been for the last 3 years.